Everybody very closely watches each year who's in the top spot, and this kind of shuffling around each year between the US and China has been really interesting to watch. And it was obviously a very, very bad year in China in terms of sales. There was a significant contraction in sales in China, and the US did well. So that balanced out in favor of the US again. So that was quite an interesting thing to watch, the fact that it can change literally in the space of a year. In some ways, some sectors of the art market can work quite counter-cyclically, so they can be very good hedges against what's going on. But I think as a whole, what's happening in the art market is very much tied to what's happening in the global economic context. And I think definitely what's happening in terms of the level and distribution of wealth. And we've seen, wealth moving towards some emerging economies. Obviously some of the economies like China weren't hit as bad in the recession, and they've been recovering. They're not immune to what's going on, but they've just been recovering that bit quicker. So that has been filtering down to what's happening in the art market as well. I'm a little worried about Europe. I think that is definitely there's a kind of a slight cloud of gloom a little bit over Europe, and I think the UK is holding its own, but I think the rest of Europe is not doing terribly well. It's fairly stagnant, or it's declining. So I think there's a couple of reasons for that. Obviously, it's economic. The Eurozone's back in recession last year. A lot of countries, there's just absolutely no consumer confidence or financial confidence in the economies, and it's hard then for people in the luxury goods market generally, and whether that's art or even other luxuries, to do well. And the other reason being is that the top end of the market's doing extremely well. The middle and lower ends are not doing very well. So unfortunately, that's where most of Europe is in this kind of this area from say up to 50,000. That's the kind of lower end of the market. That's where most European sales takes place, and that's not faring quite as well as the top end. We'll see China stabilize probably a little bit. Hopefully, whether it kind of, I don't think it's going to take off again. It's going to stabilize or keep at a fairly low level. I do see a lot of confidence coming back in the US, and I've seen just here at Tefaf a lot of more American collectors came back this year. But I think we're going to continue to see this polarity where there's a kind of an ever narrowing group of artists doing extremely well. And it gets harder and harder for newer artists to kind of break into that group. Now, I'm talking about alive or dead. It gets more difficult for new names to get in there, and it's an unfortunate thing that people, when they're still feeling quite uncertain, and that uncertainty hasn't gone away, they tend to go for the safest artists with a very proven track record. They're not taking risks as much as they used to.